Righto. Thanks for joining us today, guys. So it's been a while because I got busy after summer and haven't got back into it. So time to get going again. So that's the return of the BIM Jedi now. And so today we're going to look to BIM Like a Jedi. So I'm going to give you some of the tips that we use to do the job easier and quicker. And you'll be surprised, a lot of it is just quite simple stuff. So it's nothing mind-breaking. So how to BIM like a Jedi. This is my tips for using ArchiCAD. This is a bit of a warning here. Be careful if you, like me, don't like seeing examples of bad BIM. You might want to divert your eyes at sometimes. And because some of the examples I've taken out of real life projects. So if you're the offender, don't be offended. We'll help you repent. So BIM is your friend. It's not something that I get the impression around here. A lot of people think when we talk about BIM, these guys with strange accents, that it's something extra and something hard and something that we add on to what we do. But it's not. It's the thing that allows us to do our job better. So if we're not using BIM, we're spending a lot of our time mucking around doing drafting. And I don't think anyone got into architecture to be a draftsman. So that's all we're trying to do with BIM. The only difference between those of us who are considered experts and the others is that we spend more time designing and trying to get it right than we do fixing it up later on, trying to prepare a drawing and stuff. So as an example here, this is the exactly same elevation out of the same project. This is a piece of wall that goes up here and across the top. In this example, whoever has drawn that, when they come to print their elevations out, they're going to have to sit down and go through and try and work out and fix up this elevation so that the line's not showing. So 9 times out of 10, someone's going to put a blank fill over the top of it, and no one else is going to know that it's ever there. Whereas in this example, I can go straight from my model and print my elevations and know that it's done. And the only difference in this was that it was less than 1 millimeter inaccuracy that caused this. So it's just about taking time to do things right, and you save yourself time in the long run. So basically our goal is to enable you to do more fun stuff and less of the boring crap. Firstly, I think keep your eye on the goal. The impression I get around here a lot is that we are really focused on producing drawings. That's not what we want to do. We want to produce buildings. The moment we stop thinking about drawings and start thinking about buildings and talking about models and not drawings, you'll start to BIM better. And it's going to be like you'll understand what it is you're doing in a better way. So you focus on what it is we're trying to do. And this here is just a pathway to help it become reality. Okay, so and in future, really the drawings are probably not even going to be a part of our job because it's all going to be done out of the model in 3D and stuff like that. So it's probably time to start trying to think about models and not drawings. Use your screen. Everyone's got a nice big screen. I see lots of people using their screens like in this example here, or even worse, even smaller. It's your job. It's use the screen. There's no real reason to not use the screen other than if you are maybe working between two files, and if you haven't got two screens, or in that case, either try and sit them side by side, or as you do on your Macs, flick between them, but maximize it because then you can see more of the project. You're not just seeing that little bit that doesn't relate to everything else, so you can know where you're at. Otherwise, we'll get you all 14-inch monitors. Use your Navigator. This is another one I see a lot of. A lot of people, for some reason, use their organizer to flick between views and drawings and stuff like that. It takes up a lot of screen space, and when you're wanting to see what's happening in the background and work out what drawings and stuff you're working on. You don't want something taking over your screen. So my recommendation is to use your Navigator and dock it. So dock it so that it always sits on the right hand side of your screen or wherever else you want to dock it, but down there, and it's everything sits there. It doesn't take up too much room, and you don't have to keep opening it and closing it. So if you use this organizer, quite often you have to close it and open it, push it aside and bring it back. So just by having this here, it saves you plenty of time to flick between views. Show your Navigator. So that was what I was just saying, was dock it to the side so it stays there. So that's just a case of clicking on this little icon here and clicking Show Navigator. And you can also then stretch it a wee bit if it's too wide using the stretch button here. Keep it simple. Oh, is it not going to play? This is a classic New Zealand saying. So you're not using Revit now, Dr. Opata. It doesn't have to be complicated. So use the right tool. So a wall is a wall, a slab is a slab, a roof is a roof. And then if you do that, when you want to manipulate them and use them, they work as they should. So it's not like someone using a slab to create a wall and then someone else coming in and having to work out what you've done and how you've done it. And it makes it harder to manage how it works if you've used the wrong tool for the wrong job. If the right tool doesn't work, then maybe look to some solid element operations or Boolean toimented. And then I would always say morphs for a last resort. I mean, they're not the greatest thing to be using. So if you can't get it to work, well then maybe look at a morph. But try and use the right tool to start with, and don't overcomplicate things. So just keep it simple. Basically, everything has its purpose, and it works well when you keep it simple. Shift click. This is another one. I always have my finger on the shift key because when you move your mouse and you push the shift key, it locks the mouse to the horizontal or vertical plane, or 45, or another preset angle that you can define yourself. So don't place walls, or especially long elements, by eye. You end up with this sort of stuff here. And again, that's probably only a fraction of a degree off vertical. It doesn't do anyone any favors at the end of the day, because you end up, with incorrect measurements, and it can also, I think in this project here, I found one where the wall varied by 250 millimeters roughly off vertical, or off, straight from one end to the other. So in a project, when someone gets on the construction site, that's a big variation. And at the end of the day, if that's not caught, it's us that will be responsible. So, and placing points quickly, the other one I hear is I'm in a hurry, I haven't got time to place a point accurately. That's rubbish, because if you don't place it accurately the first time, someone has to go through and find it and fix it up, and that takes just as much time or more as you having done it right, and also opens up the risk of errors. And I mean, we want to be doing the job right to start. Use the force. ArchiCAD has a lot of built-in features that steer you around the project, that allow you to know that you're right or you're wrong. One of them is the intelligent cursor, and it changes color or style depending on where it is. So if you are hooking up to a node point on an element or a wall or a slab, it will always turn the black pen. If you are on the edge of the reference line, say, it'll be the Mercedes cursor up here. And so it'll, these ticks will come up and tell you that you're in the right spot. So use them. Don't just run around and bang things down and place them at random. And also, while you're doing that, I find it very easy, or makes it much easier, if you quite often zoom up on what you're working on. So when you're wanting to link something up to something else, don't be sitting miles back so you can see the whole building, and you're trying to hook up a ceiling slab to the inside of a 100mm wall, which is like 1mm on the screen. Zoom up so you can see it, and pick the right place, and then click. It doesn't take long, and then you can zoom back out and go from there. And then just getting it right to start is so much better than being in a hurry and having to fix it. So again, these are some examples from the same project, same story, and probably all within a stone's throw of each other in one story. So over here is a smart corner. That one's not, nor's that, and that's even worse. So, we see this too much. Someone has to come through and fix it all. So do it right first time. One element is better than many, and I see this many times as well. Someone has drawn a wall, and for some reason we need to extend it, slab even, and instead of just going in and grabbing the end of the wall and stretching it, they have placed another piece of wall along and added that to it. And then I've even seen cases where I've seen, like in the stretch of 5 or 6 meters, 4 or 5 pieces of wall placed to build up one wall. Don't do that. There's absolutely no reason to do that. And if there is a reason, it should be a good one. The only reason I can really think of is if in a piece of wall, the fire rating or the acoustic rating changes between rooms, but the actual wall structure is the same. But you want to be able to clearly define which rooms are acoustically isolated or fire separations. We'll then break it, but that would then result in a break at a wall, not some random break halfway through the room. So that would tend to be the only way, or only time I think you would want to have the same wall end on end. So don't duplicate elements. There's absolutely no reason for putting a wall over a wall. This wall should stop here, and if this wall is not quite right, well, then we need to produce a composite to fix that up. But this sort of stuff doesn't do us any favors, especially once we start then exporting our model to IFC and people are using it for estimating purposes and stuff like that, because then we end up with excess areas which are going into the costing and blowing the budget out, which is hard enough as it is. Put things on the correct story. So always check your story settings. Sometimes if you've copied something or alt-clicked on something or done it in 3D even, I've noticed sometimes the home story is incorrect. So it doesn't hurt always to open up the settings box and just check that the home story is the one that you're wanting to put the element on and what stories you want to show it on. Now, remembering if you're placing a wall and you have set the top of the wall to link to the next story and say at 0 level, 0 distance, and you've got the wall on all relevant stories, that wall will show on the floor above. So then it also interferes with clean intersection stuff. So sometimes you look at a plan and you know that you've got everything right, you've got the node points meeting up, but you can't work out why there's still a gap in the corner that looks like they're not joined. Can quite often be that you've got a wall on all relevant stories coming up to finish at 0. So in those instances, go down and turn that off, and then you should be right. In these multi-story buildings, it's always good to link the top of the wall to the story above, especially in those early stages where we're still sometimes playing with story heights. If if you set the top of the wall to the story above and then allow for the floor, every time we make an adjustment of the story, the walls will automatically become the right height. So it's not like saying that the walls are 4.5 meters from the floor to the underside of the slab, and then someone decides that we're going to add another 300 mils or take 300 off, and then you've got all these walls that you've got to go around and fix up because you put them in as a fixed wall height. So try and use that linking wherever possible. And one other thing is that no multi-story walls, because when we export to IFC, they want to be able to split the building up sometimes by stories. So if you have a building, a wall that extends across multiple stories, but as home story as story 1, in the IFC model, when they split it and say, I want to see story 2, because it's on story 1, even though it goes through story 2, it doesn't show. So we want to work on the basis of everything belongs on its own story. Unfortunately, we don't use the multi-story wall for now. Shortcuts. Use shortcuts. There's lots of them. And you can even make your own. So some of the things that you do frequently, if you notice that it hasn't got a shortcut, you're always going up to the menu or the toolbar. You can go into the work environment, keyboard shortcuts, come and find the command and see if it's got a currently assigned shortcut. If not, create your own. So your combination usually of the Control or Alt Shift keys and something else. So think of something easy that hasn't been used and plug it in there. And then you can also then save that into your own profile later on if you want to have it there for all your projects. And then you can export it to new versions of ArchiCAD. Don't be afraid to work in 3D. A lot of people seem to work in 2D only, and working in 3D allows you to actually see how everything connects together in that bigger environment. It allows you to make sure that things that are lining up are actually lining up, and you can quickly see any errors. Like if we were a bit further around, you could see whether these two walls were actually in line, because if they weren't in line, there would be a line between them. If they were in line, it would look like one whole wall. So you can then quickly try and fix things up. And it also allows you to get a better feel for how everything is working. And again, we're modeling, not drawing. So yeah, you want to build the model right. Use trace reference. So that actually helps you locate your elements accurately. And again, zoom up when you have to make sure that you have got the right point, and use that smart cursor, intelligent cursor to know that you're lining up with an element below. Also, with the trace reference, it allows us to, like if you've got a reference drawing, most of you know this, like a PDF or a DVG, you can put that in a worksheet and then bring that back as trace reference, so it's not actually sitting in the main file as such and cluttering up the workspace. Graphic overrides are another one. These allow you to highlight all sorts of information quickly and easily. This one here, I've done we call it struct load bearing elements override. So it's just highlighting anything that's marked as load bearing, so we know what to work around, even though some people haven't worked around that. And that can be done for all sorts of things like ceilings, floors, wall types. We've used it for basin types. So if you're searching for stainless steel basins and Corian basins and some other porcelain ones, and so you can quickly and easily see where they all are. So anytime you're wanting to look through the plan to find stuff, graphic override will really help you do it. So you just have to go into the graphic override box down here and then open it up and start making some rules. So like look for all hand based, or look for all objects. Its name is alas, and then maybe its material is porcelain. Make it green, and then if you do the same and make the material corian, make it red, and it will quickly bang show them all up for you. So that works in 2D and 3D. So you can actually also set a 3D color to an element as well. So then you can actually work through the model and look for things with in 3D. It'll turn red or green or blue or orange or whatever it is you want to show up. Don't reserve everything. I see this happen a lot. And I know why it happens. It's if you have some elements in your ownership or your reservation, but you don't realize, and then you want to edit one and you grab it and you request to reserve it. If you don't have that element, you don't see anything. ArchiCAD just turns the node points from grey to black and makes the line darker green or whatever it is, and you can do whatever you want. If you do own it, it brings up this box here, which is actually asking you, do you want to reserve everything on the story, because you've already reserved that one element. So don't just, and for some reason it defaults to reserve elements. So don't just bang the button or hit return, which everyone does, because then you get everything on the floor, whether you know it or not. And so when you select a few things, or put a marquee around something to select something, thinking that you've only got walls or something, you're grabbing floors, furniture, the whole lot, beams, posts, and when you delete that one wall, well, then you're deleting everything else with it. So please make sure that when that box comes up, you change and click cancel. Control Z, this is a great feature for ArchiCAD because it's the undo button. So if you don't know how to do something and you want to work it out, do it. Grab whatever it is that you want to do something to, either do it live or drag a copy out to the side and do whatever it is you want to do, experiment with. If it doesn't work, Control Z. You've got 20 steps by default that you can backspace, or until your last save. So don't go experimenting and then do a save or a send or something crazy, but experiment away, and then you can backspace out to a point that you know where you were and then carry on. Or if you got so far and it worked, but you went a bit further and it didn't work, well, then you can get back to that working place and then try something else. So, and that can actually be changed to up to 99 steps, I think, if you get into the data safety and integrity settings in the background, and we could project preferences, but we won't go there now. Know where to look now. We get this on all the time. Everyone goes, "Oh, I placed these walls or these elements or windows, and they're not there. I've gone into the elevations or the cross sections, or I've gone up to another story and done something, and I've come back and they've disappeared. Where have they gone?" There's a number of places, unfortunately, where they could have gone. Well, they haven't gone anywhere, but there's a number of reasons why you can't see them. So basically, if that happens, rather than running to someone and saying, "Well, things have disappeared," go through a process first. So they could be hidden by the graphic override setting. So first thing I always do is turn off my graphic overrides. So go no graphic overrides. So that sort of converts everything back to whatever it should be, and you might find it there. If that doesn't work, renovation filters is another beauty. This one catches you all the time. If you are working on a plan where maybe it's a new plan, so we haven't bothered with the proper renovation statuses and we're just going with whatever defaults to. If the view sets are set up with an existing plan renovation filter and you place something on a new layer, it's not going to show up. And same if you put it on the demolition layer, which is accidental, it's more likely that you put it on the new layer and the plan set showing existing. So open up the renovation filters and go to the one that sort of like shows everything. And then you'll generally see that it will come up. So then you can go through and fix up what was wrong. They could be hidden behind the element with a cover fill. So like a zone or a slab where you can put a cover fill over, or God forbid someone's put a fill on a floor plan or something. If that element has got a fill, say with like a white background, and the object that you've placed is like, you know, in the arrangement order is at the back or behind the slab, say, so the slab's on top, well then it will get hidden. So the thing to do there would be maybe hide all your slabs or anything with a cover fill and see if it's in the background there. Another way would be to create a graphic override that hides all cover fills or something like that, and you'll see from there. Check your layer settings. So you could have put it on the wrong layer, or you might have put it on the right layer, but the view set might not have that layer for some reason in the layer combination. So use either quick layers to flick between the layers you've got open and the ones you've got closed, or just do a show all layers and see if it's there. Should be there. So then you can, if you find it that way, then you either change your layer combination or put the element on the right layer. And then check they have the correct home story. That's another one that sometimes happens, like especially with windows and doors as well as objects. So you can place an object on the second floor or second story, and it'll, in its title or its dialog box, it'll say that its home story is the third floor. And it might only, and you might even have the elevation right. So it could be at the right height, but you might have it on like show home story only, or you've placed it and it was showing on everything, but someone's gone through and turned it to home story. So then it will only show on the story above where it was placed. So I just whack a marquee around, a multi-story marquee around the area where you're looking for the object, and then go into the 3D view and see where it is. If it's in the right place, well then you select it, open it up, and see what's wrong. So check that it's in the right story or things like that. So it's that one. That one can be like there's probably other reasons too why things hide, but there's the main ones that I strike. So yeah. And just Google it. If you want to do something that you don't know how to do, go to Google before you run and ask someone. So use English and be specific, and then look for the answers from reasonable good ArchiCAD sources like Graphisoft Help, ArchiTalk, Eric Bobro, Shunome. There's a few others as well. But just, yeah, so the more specific you can be in your search terms, the more chance you'll have of finding something, and there'll be a YouTube video or a Graphisoft Help article about it. So go there. Now, if that doesn't work, well, then go and ask a BIM manager, and they'll probably Google it anyway. So. And when all else fails, abort mission. ArchiCAD has a habit sometimes of crashing or freezing, and we don't know why. And there's a number of reasons why that can be. So before you run off and pester someone else to come and fix it, I'd suggest you take a few steps first. So if it's actually crashed, disappeared off the screen, make sure you send the bug report. That goes off to Graphisoft, goes into their system, and then they'll analyse what's happening and hopefully fix whatever the problem is with a hot fix later on or something in a new issue. It's sort of doing no one any favours by not sending it. Restart ArchiCAD and open the selected project from this menu here. So when you've had a crash, ArchiCAD retains the file that you had open, the files that you had open when it crashed in its memory. So open this up, or open ArchiCAD up, it will bring this screen up, click on the project and open selected project and continue. So that will then basically take you back to where you were. I've never actually, well, I can't remember a case where I've ever recovered a file and I've actually lost more than one step of work. So the autosave is pretty good. So yeah, I rely on that at times. And then you can just carry on and work from where you were and do a send and receive as normal. So in those instances, what I would normally do as well is the first thing is if this works and you recover ArchiCAD from this point, I would get in and do a send and receive straight away so that everything does go up to the server and you know it's there and you get back what's latest. So if the screen freezes, before you take some drastic measures, check what is happening with other members of the project. So if you're in a project with a lot of people, I've noticed that quite often it's not just you that has the frozen screen, it's 3 or 4 other people as well. So, and it seems to be quite often that if something's running in the background on the server, so due to backup times or project snapshots on the server, which we've tried to minimize to no more than 1 a day on most projects. But because of the queue, sometimes they get, even if they're queued up for late at night or early in the morning, I think the queue can be so long that it could happen around lunchtime. And I've noticed quite regularly that some projects do freeze up around 1:30ish when people are all sending and receiving, and then later on we work out that it's been a project snapshot or a backup on the server. So first thing is not to panic and not crashing things out and running around with hands in the air. I'd give it time. Sometimes sit down, wait for 5 or 10 minutes, see what it does, and then start working out what it could be. So if it's just you, or if it doesn't seem to be a background backup or something, well, then we need to start looking at what our options are. So first one would be to shut down ArchiCAD. So do a Control-Alt-Delete or Control-Shift-Escape and crash out of ArchiCAD. Then restart, like in the previous example, and that would allow us then to bring up that recovery screen and recover the project from that point. So you can sort of crash out of ArchiCAD comfortably knowing that you aren't going to lose too much if there is problems. So that's one thing to remember. Next thing would be, if that doesn't work, and I've seen where we've done that and you have the same problem again, is to go in and clear your local cache. So BIM Cloud works by storing data on your machine, not the whole project, but it's packets of data that allow it to communicate with the server and keep the project moving. So sometimes that data on your local server has been corrupted, so you want to go into the local data manager, which is located under the team tab, and select the file that you're having problems with and delete it by clicking on delete. So once you've selected a file, click delete, and then I think that changes to whatever, apply or something, and go from there. And then once you've done that, you'll find probably 9 times out of 10 that fixes your problem. It seems to come back okay. It takes a wee while to load up, but it will load up. And if that doesn't work, restart your computer. That always solves another 9 out of 10 problems. And if that doesn't help, contact BIM manager, and they will go through their checklists of ideas. And if it's beyond us, well, then we get to and find out what the real problem is. But you'll find that I'd say 95% of the problems will be solved by step 2 most of the time. And actually, while we're on the subject of the BIM cloud and the server, another thing to keep your file tidy is to actually close it down every night. So don't go home and leave your file sitting open. I've said it a few times. Don't leave it sitting open because you think that you can't be bothered waiting for 5 minutes in the morning for it to load. Close it down, because then that takes the pressure off the server. The server's not always communicating with all these open files which are doing nothing. It allows the file to do its thing. And then when you come in the morning and reopen and restart, you'll get a nice tidy copy, and you have less chance of problems during the day than if you've left it sitting overnight. And I've noticed that since a lot of people started doing that, the problems have reduced drastically. For some reason. And also we've noticed that those files where the project is left sitting for a lot, the file size gets really, really big, and it just seems to be bloating up the file. And we've taken files, I think I took one for Lara the other day, the other one, and took it off the server and put it back on, and we reduced its size from something like 15 gigabytes, and I thought I would maybe be lucky to get it down to half size, and it came back at 3. So there's just all that sort of stuff contributes to like this file bloat, and then the slow files that we have. So it's really look after the file and manage it carefully, and you should have less problems. So that is pretty much all of the Jedi secrets. So it really is a case of just working smart, keeping it simple. We don't tend to try and do much more. I don't use fancy morphs and shells and stuff. I mean, we don't have a lot of reason for using any of those anyway. So I tend to try and use all the natural objects for what they are, and everything works really good. So just, keep it simple and keep it smart. So thanks a lot, and we'll be back next week. Thank you.